It's all about improving the great outdoors. This week on Today's Homeowner, we've got tips and ideas on how to plan it and some great get your hands dirty kind of project to make it happen. Coming up next. See? Spring is here, so perfect time to start improving your great outdoors. And you can see we've got a little work ahead of us here. Cleaning up a yard can make a big difference, but we're going to take it a little step further by doing a few very simple do-it-yourself friendly projects to this area of this yard. Of course, we'll be doing the cleaning. Also, we'll be defining this flower bed, creating a nice little walkway from those steps right up to this little patio, and installing a nice little arbor to kind of define the entryway to this area of the yard. Now, whether you're doing a project like this or maybe a larger project, planning is so important to ensure the success of that project. And recently we talked with award-winning landscape designer Nicholas Walker, who gave us a few ideas about how to get started.
I always say, listen, look at the site you have, because here, if you look, this is all sandstone.
Right.
We are in a drought cycle.
Right.
We're in Southern California. We're in fire and water issues. So
I noticed there's no irrigation here and everything. So all of these plants, and I mean, darn, there's hundreds of them here. They're all surviving out here without irrigation.
That's right, Danny. And that's the whole issue right now, is to teach people that you can have a very varied plant palette, interesting, and it doesn't require water. And if we have a fire, it's not flammable.
Right. And some of the other varieties, I know, like you have the ground cover, and I don't know the name of it.
Ice plant.
Ice plant,
Yep.
Okay.
What's great about that plant is, as you see, we're in a canyon. The fire will come up from down below and sweep up to the house. The house I am doing is a fire rebuild. So the previous house burned to the ground.
Oh boy.
In the '93 fire. So knowing that, I have designed sort of these terraces where you hope to stop the fire, and at each bank you have this ice plant, which produces flowers, doesn't require any water, and it's full of actually juice, and that will be like a fire retardant. So I always say, look at the site and look at your trees. Where do you want to have some privacy? Where do you want to have some shade? It's all the basic stuff, but some people just kind of step over the basics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I tell you what, I can't wait until you get this place finished. I know it's going to take you a little while because there's a lot of work. A lot of work to be done here and everything. But we're definitely going to come back out and see how everything works out.
I would love that.
In our case, the site has plenty of shade and plenty of leaves. They're everywhere. We got the whole crew into the act to remove them. I'm starting to perspire so that we can find the ground and start the real work. The first project that we're going to tackle is to tie a path from the stairs of the deck right into the concrete patio. A lot of options out there. You can use gravel, you can use concrete, you can use natural stone that you place along as stepping stones, but I'm going to use something that I found at a trade show years ago that I've been anxious to use. It's called the Walkmaker Path System. Basically, heavy-duty plastic forms like this that you place right on the ground, put concrete in it, allow it to dry, and you can move it along to create as long a path as you want. Now notice there's quite a few of these that are available in different type of brick, running bond, basket weave. The kind we're using is the country stone pattern. And again, all you have to do is to prepare the ground, make sure it's packed pretty well. Then you just take the form, place it right on the ground, pour your concrete, pack it in place, allow it to dry, and you can move it from place to place. So you only need a couple of these to create any size path that you want. We have several of them to pick up the pace a little bit, and to make it a little more interesting, we're going to add color to the concrete mix. This Quikrete tinting solution is stirred into the water that will be used to mix the concrete. So for consistency, it's important to use the same amount of water each time you mix a batch. Mixing the concrete itself is really the hardest part of the work because there's so much of it to do. One 80-pound bag of dry concrete makes enough to fill a little more than one Walkmaker form. Speaking of those, since we have a few extra, we use them to rough out the shape of the path and then find the center point. Starting there will let us pour 2 forms at once we get going. As Tim shovels the mud out, I pack it into the forms and scrape off all of the excess with a screed board. A brush or broom dragged across the drying concrete gives it a slightly textured finish, and once we feel like it's ready, the form comes off. The next form is butted up to the first stone, and the process is repeated again and again until we reach the ends. We pour 2 extra forms separate from the rest so that they'll dry overnight. Then we can use the individual stones to fill the gaps at the steps and the patio where a whole form just wouldn't fit. We also adjust some of the individual stones within the path to even out the gaps we created by arching the pathway. A little new sod on either side of the path will help contain the joining mix that goes on next. And it's a polymer modified sand that binds together when it gets wet, so it stays put and holds everything in place. The final step is to lightly mist all of the stones in the joining sand to lock all of that in place. And of course, with all this new sod we have, we need to water it in thoroughly anyway. While I'm finishing all of this up, let's check in with Joe and see what he's got going back at the shop on this week's Simple Solution.
I'm very excited today to be assembling my new gas grill, and it's coming together really well, except that I find that every piece has this giant sticker adhered to it, and there's no way to easily peel it off. I was thinking of using mineral spirits to dissolve the glue, but realized I would wind up with a big gooey mess. So I came up with this idea, using an electric heat gun. So I'm going to take it and apply the heat to soften the adhesive, then peel it off. Let's see how that works. Might take a minute or two, because this metal is cold. There you go, look at that, isn't that great? Came right off nice and cleanly, didn't even leave behind any adhesive. Now this is a great tip to remove stickers from any metal surface, but because of the intense heat, I'm not sure I'd try this on plastic.
This week we're improving the great outdoors with several unique projects to spice up this backyard. But there's one improvement chore that almost every homeowner faces: mowing. No matter what you do to improve your great outdoors, it's not going to look that good if your grass looks like this. Mowing grass on a regular basis and choosing the right mower is so important to a nice, healthy lawn. But how do you choose the right mower? Well, let your lawn decide. You know, how big is your yard and how many trees or landscape areas do you have to go around, and is it flat or is it sloping? All of those are important questions to ask yourself when you're ready to go out and get that brand new mower. Now, if you have a fairly small yard, let's say a half acre or less, the walk-behind mowers will do a great job. And if you want to get a really good workout, buy one that doesn't have the self-propelled features. But if you want to make it a little easier, get the self-propelled model, and you can find a model that'll allow the mower speed to match up with your walking pace. That's real important. But if you have a larger yard, you're going to want a riding lawnmower. The tractor-style mowers like this one are among the most popular because the driving style is familiar and they can accept a large variety of accessories. We got our money's worth out of the bagger on this one earlier with all the leaves we had to pick up. But you've probably seen the professional lawn service guys on those models that use control levers instead of a steering wheel. Well, those are available to consumers now, and they deliver an exceptional cut. Plus, they let you turn on a dime. The folks at John Deere have added some of that maneuverability to this tractor model by giving it four-wheel steering. All four wheels turn so that you can make tight cuts around even small obstacles. That means less backing up in order to get around trees and shrubs, which speeds up the job, so you can improve the look of your great outdoors in no time at all.
Well, Danny's getting a little work done out on the lawn. I thought I would go ahead and jump on the curbing. That's going to help define this flower bed. And one thing about this, since the flower bed is already raised, the curbing's not just going to define it, but it'll help contain it. Now, I am going to make this out of concrete, and just like Danny's pathway, it's a lot easier to do than you may think.
This shovel work is not only necessary to establish the rough outline of the curb, but also to level the ground that supports it. When you've got it close, the soil needs to be compacted to provide a solid base. Otherwise, as the dirt settles, the curb's going to crack. I'm using 4-inch strips of 1/4-inch thick hardboard to form up the concrete, and it's going to take 2 pieces to cover the distance. So by overlapping them in the middle, I can mark the cut perfectly. Setting a stake at this location allows me to join the 2 pieces easily after each piece is leveled. If you're making an arc like this, you may have to make adjustments as you drive the stakes to get the kind of curve you want. Now, this hardboard bends easily enough, but that also means it'll need a lot of support when the concrete starts pushing on it. Our guide to concrete recommends a minimum of 5 inches for the curb thickness. So to keep a consistent thickness throughout the curb, I'm using several blocks of wood at exactly that dimension to offset the outside form board from the inside one. Once you get the curve right, you can level and attach the second form board to the stakes. I'm using screws for this particular job because I think hammering nails would knock the 1x2 stakes loose as I attach the forms. To complement the pathway that Danny created earlier, we're using the same Quikrete color formula to tint the concrete for our curb too. This batch can be mixed a little more wet than the stuff Danny used on the Walkmaker path since we don't have to remove the forms right away. At first glance, you wouldn't think that this little curb would take that much concrete. But that 4-inch by 5-inch space, stretched out over 15 feet, adds up to an awful lot of mixing and pouring and mixing and pouring. Once the concrete is level with the top of the forms, working the surface with a trowel draws the water to the top and smooths it off. As the concrete starts to firm up, we can round off the front lip with an edging tool. And about every 3 feet, I'll use a scoring tool to create an indentation. This way, if the concrete cracks, it should happen in this recess where it'll be concealed.
You know, one of my biggest pet peeves when I pull out my garden hose is getting a kink in it or getting it all twisted up. Then I'm having to pull on it and try to work that kink out so I can get the water to flow out of it. Well, you know what? That's a big problem, and now here's the solution to that problem. This is called the Never Kink, and it's a great heavy-duty garden hose. The technology behind this no kink technology is that it's got reflex mesh built into the garden hose, so it virtually eliminates any kinks or any tangling, so you're not struggling with it as you're working your way across your lawn. Another thing that I like about it is it also has micro shield, and what that basically is an antimicrobial agent actually incorporated into the hose to eliminate mold and mildew buildup that will eventually deteriorate the hose over time. So you've got different sizes to choose from. You can get a 50-foot length, a 75-foot length, or a 100 length hose. So now you have no excuses for getting out there and watering your lawn. So get to it.
Our projects to improve the great outdoors are coming along nicely with the pathway complete and the curbing for the planting bed done. So you might say things are looking up for us. All right, Alan, I mowed all this grass.
Yeah.
I put down this great Walkmaker path. I even started planting grass, and all you did was this little curb. That's
Wait a minute.
That's pretty neat.
That's 15 feet of curb and 320 pounds of concrete.
Yeah. Boy, you got your statistics together there,
that's
don't
great.
you?
Yeah. But I got to tell you, I love the arbor kit you picked out
Yeah.
because this is going to be the perfect focal point for this pathway.
It will be nice, and maybe get some vines growing over it and that kind of thing. Now, what we've done is we've dug a few post holes and put in these concrete tube forms that are waxed. So it really works well to utilize 4x4 treated posts that we will insert into the plastic arbor kit that we have and put them right in place. But it means a little more concrete you got to mix.
Oh, just a little bit more, and that's really the only thing we got left to do now. We're going to pour these tubes full of concrete, as you mentioned, because the arbor is so lightweight. 4x4 posts are going inside the kit, and we're ready to set it in place.
All right, let's go. This time we aren't adding any color to the concrete since it won't be seen. And Alan's mixing this batch even wetter than before so that we can pour it into the tubes directly from the wheelbarrow. Meanwhile, I'm attaching the treated wood post inside the hollow trellis legs by driving several screws into each one. With a couple of feet of post inside the frame and a couple of feet in the concrete footings, this thing should be plenty secure. When the concrete is ready, we pour the holes about 2/3 of the way full to leave a little room for the post. The spout on the front of this wheelbarrow is a little funky looking, but it sure is ideal for this job. All the mud makes it into the holes instead of all over the ground. When the holes are ready, we can set the trellis into the concrete and begin leveling it in place. You're perfect right now.
Okay.
I mean, the
Thank
post
you. I
is.
appreciate that.
I've corrected that real quick. Did you go grab that? The beauty of setting posts this way is that they are completely surrounded by concrete with no chance of voids beneath them. The wax-lined tubes also keeps the soil from drawing the moisture out of the concrete too quickly, which can reduce its strength. With the trellis complete, we can finish dressing up the yard with another load or two of sod to fill in the bare spots. The curbing has hardened enough now that we can remove the form boards from it before we add some new flowers to the planting bed and freshen the area up with some new mulch. Like any job, improving the great outdoors is a lot easier if you have the right tools to work with. Now, if you have a large piece of property like this one, then any project that you take on can be fairly large and a little overwhelming. You might consider a compact utility tractor. Now, even if you don't fancy yourself a farmer, these things can solve a lot of problems because they're so versatile and can do so many different kinds of jobs. Moving dirt is the most obvious chore that comes to mind because on a larger piece of property, that often means more than you can handle with a shovel and a wheelbarrow. A backhoe makes digging deep, narrow holes like trenches or footings a cinch, and using a box blade for occasional grooming can mean a longer life and fewer potholes for an unpaved driveway. But the front-end loader is no doubt the most popular attachment because in addition to taking the backache out of moving dirt, it also speeds up the process. By swapping the bucket for forks, you can extend that heavy lifting to other things as well. This ease of accessory changes is an important consideration. Let's face it, if it's too difficult, you just won't do it. This model from John Deere requires no tools at all to make the conversion, just 2 locking pins to secure the attachment in place. There's even a drive-over mower deck that hooks up as fast as you can park the tractor over it. Think about everything we've been able to harness the power of the sun for. We've got solar panels that help to generate electricity for our homes, solar lights to brighten up the paths at night, even solar ovens for cooking food. Well, I've got another amazing solar product. It's a solar clothes dryer. Of course, you might know it better as a clothesline. Line drying uses 0 electricity. The UV rays of the sun actually help sanitize the laundry and the fresh smell is unbeatable. The one complaint is that items will dry stiff. This is easily solved by taking the sun-dried clothes and putting them in the dryer with no heat and adding dryer balls to fluff them back out. This only takes about 5 minutes. Now, one other thing, besides not contributing more to your carbon footprint, you'll be saving money too. And in today's economy, that's worth the trip outside. This time of the year, the outdoor spaces around a home can be as important as the decor in the living room, so we've been digging into some tips and ideas to help you improve the great outdoors around your place. Our makeover project for the week was a sad-looking space that needed some cleanup and a little definition. Allen's curb around the raised flower bed does exactly that. It adds definition and contains the plantings beautifully. The Walkmaker pathway creates the perfect transition from the deck to the patio in a style and color that complements everything around it, including the new trellis kit that acts like a big welcome sign. And of course, adding some new grass to the bare spots and giving the rest of the lawn some TLC hasn't hurt either. Each of these projects is great on its own, but when you put it all together, it really looks nice.
Yeah, but what's really impressive is that in just one weekend, with a little bit of help, you've created a great before and after picture, and you've done it all without breaking the bank.
Yeah, but you got a little tired, didn't you?
Very tired.
All right, come over here and sit down. I got some water for you.
Oh, you're the man, you're the man.
Maybe we can plan out another show.
Well, you know, I do have a list of ideas.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Good,
Yeah,
great.
about as long as my arm.
All right.
They're all at my house.
No,
but,
that's no good. That's no good.
You're
Here
feeling
to
a little
you.
generous?
Thank you. If it's new and cool for the kitchen or bath, you'll find it right here next week. Sure didn't mix that very well.